Talk 17, Education Fit for the Future, Advancing Technology and Innovation. Established in 2018, VNU Vietnam Scientist Link aims to connect scientists and promote a collaboration in education, research, and education. And this time, we have a great opportunity to feature a joint research education project between Vietnam scholars and a UK partner. It is also about one of the hot topics for the last 2 years, medical training collaboration to fight COVID-19. And my name is Nha, and from the University of Languages and International Study, Vietnam National University, and I will be the MC for today's event. Attending the event today, I would like to introduce Associate Professor Trần Thị Thanh Tú. I think that she's attending online, the chair of VSL. And at the camp in the hall today, also Associate Professor Nguyễn Trần Thuật, Deputy Chair of VSL. We'll have interested teachers, researchers, scholars from different institutions and universities attending online and offline this event. Last but not least, we would like to introduce the honor speakers for the presentation and discussion panel today. Professor Raymond Lee, Professor Bio and Associate Dean Global Engagement, University of Portsmouth, UK. I just introduce to you and later you will, yeah. And Dr. Phan Hiễu Phúc, Director of Training and Research Institute for Child Health, Vice Director of Medical Intensive Care Unit, Vietnam National Children's Hospital. Associate Professor Lê Kim Anh, Hanoi University of Public Health. Professor Dương Sĩ Quý, President of Vietnam Society of Sleep Medicine, Penn State University of Medicine, Director of Lâm Đồng Medical College and Biomedical Research Center, Đà Lạt, Vietnam. Professor Dương Sĩ Quý is online. Okay. And Associate Professor Mai Anh Tuấn, Senior Lecturer from Vietnam National University, University of Engineering and Technology. Thank you very much and welcome to the event. For today's event, after the welcome speech, we would like to have 40 minutes keynote presentation by Professor Lee, followed by a 50-minute roundtable discussion with the panelists. The audience, both online via Zoom and in VNU campus today, can post questions to the speakers for later discussion. So now I would like to invite Associate Professor Nguyễn Trần Thuật, Deputy Chair of Vietnam Scientist Link Committee, to the stage to give a welcome speech. So please.
All right, I promise to be very quick. First of all, I would like to thank you, Professor Raymond Lee, for accepting the invitation to come here to give a very important talk. We talk 17 about the topic is about the education fit for the future of advanced health technology and innovation. And also would like to thank you, Professor Mai Anh Tuấn, for making the connection. Without your help, I don't think that we are able to make this event happen. And so on behalf of VSL, which is Vietnam National University Scientist Links, we are also a network, and we would like to extend our connection with the other network, such as the network that Professor Lee, which is the co-chair for the moment. And I know that Professor Lee, you are very busy for your professional work and for the network that you are co-chair. And we are eager to see and to enjoy your presentations about an improvement of a model to a quadruple helix model. And I hope that today we will have something to learn and to apply in Vietnam. And I would like to wish our seminar today will be a very successful and very useful seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. To start today's talk, I would like to introduce and invite Professor Raymond Lee to give a presentation. And Professor Lee has worked in the higher education sector for almost 30 years and has held various senior academic appointments in the UK, Australia, and Hong Kong. His previous academic work has enabled him to develop global connections and experience. He received his PhD in bioengineering from the University of Strathclyde, Glasgow, which was funded by the British Council Fellowship. He also won the Association of Commonwealth Universities Development Fellowship, which allowed him to undertake the research at King's College, London. He has regularly been invited to be keynote speaker of international conferences, to serve as a panel members for research funding bodies from the UK, Spain, and to act as a referees for professional real conferment panels. Recently, he has been elected to be the UK co-chair and the British Council UK-Vietnam Higher Education Partnership Network. His research lies in the interface of engineering and clinical science. He has specific interest in health technology, spine biomechanics, aging, and arteriopoiesis. He has been involved in the development of healthcare technologies for the fall detection of the elderly, physical activity monitoring, assessment of human posture, kinematic measurements, and sleep apnea assessment. So please welcome our keynote speaker today. So Professor Lee, please.
Thank you very much. Firstly, let me extend my thanks to the organizers here and Professor TRONG and for inviting me here to be here today to speak on education fit for the future, an education model that I would like to advocate. I would also like to acknowledge the funding support of the British Council, which has funded our projects in the last few years, which has now come to a conclusion. I'll talk a little bit about our study that we have conducted together as a team. Firstly, I need to also apologize. I think the photo doesn't do any credit. It doesn't look like me at all. I think I look too young in that photo. So I hope this is not disappointing you at all. And I also need to apologize. I just come from the UK and I'm suffering from jet lag at the moment. So if I start to struggle and doze off in the presentation, let me know. So anyway, I'm going to talk about an educational model which might be fit for the future and how we can use this model to advance health technology and innovation. I will also talk about a little bit of a philosophy, a philosophy that we discuss quite often in our project, which is related to the quadruple Helix model. It's not about genetic engineering, so don't worry. I'm talking about health technology today. Firstly, I would like to say to transfer research into the medical world is actually an extremely difficult task. In my opinion, we all publish in our professional career. Publishing is not difficult at all. But translating the knowledge into the medical world is a big challenge. And you can see what I call the value of depth. So on the two sides of the screen, on the left-hand side, it's about basic research. On the right-hand side, it's about product development, maybe in the area of health technology. You will find there is a lot of investment and funding opportunities on the two sides of the cycle. So a lot of funding, from the government on basic science research, a lot of funding in the UK now from UKRI, for example, the research innovation funding body on the product development. But there isn't a lot of money available in the middle of the process, which is about feasibility study, which is about prototyping, market research. There isn't a lot of support for this. And this is actually causing a lot of trouble in translating the research into the clinical environment. And as you know, in most universities, we are somehow detached, from the real world. And without doing the market research, it is actually quite difficult. In the UK, the NHIR, the National Innovation for Invention of the NHS has now started a new funding scheme, which is addressing this problem. You know, you can be paid to do research on marketing, on patent acquisition, all the things that you can do to de-risk the project, to allow, you know, entry into the market, establishing the routes of entry. And I think this is actually quite critical. And this is going to be a very fast funding process. In the past, you know, it normally takes a year or maybe at least 9 months, 6 months to get the project funding approved. This is going to be a very fast process. You know, you will get it approved in 3 weeks in terms of prototyping. So this is an injection into the process to solve this problem, which is what we call the valley of death. You know, trying to address the process in between the two ends. Now, obviously, we are all talking about providing world-class healthcare. Innovation is key to that, which is one of the things we are going to talk about. But it's not just about the science. I really want to emphasize that. It is about excellent user and patient experience. So today's medical healthcare is not just about treating the patient's condition, but we want the patients to be happy, to be really, not really the word, to use the word enjoying it is just the wrong thing, you know, because you're suffering from some kind of conditions, but at least it's not a painful process. It is a good experience, you know, a positive experience in recovery. So in the UK, we now also got funding to look at users' experience. You know, it's a separate funding body to allow us to look at patients and doctors, what they would like to see in the medical products. In my opinion, this is actually one of the major obstacles in translating, you know, our work into the clinical world. Without us liking, you know, the medical product, we are unlikely going to use it. And it ought to be sustainable as well. And this is, I think, what world-class healthcare is all about. You know, it's about enhancing the mindset of the clinicians and the employees, but also shaping the experience of the patients. Really a positive experience. It's like, you know, teaching our students. You know, it's not just about learning anymore. You know, in the university, although it is a learning community, it's also about how enjoyable the learning experience is. You need to enjoy the subject area in learning. And likewise, in clinical product or prototyping, we need the user to enjoy using it. So as I said, user research is getting really important to get a deep understanding of users' needs and goals and, you know, and the motivations. I can give you an example. There was a very interesting research project some years ago that I encountered. It's about building an airbag around the hip. Okay, so when someone is going to fall, it would trigger the airbag. It will, you know, expand and protect the hip from fractures. It's a very clever, you know, engineering idea. But this product has come to be a total failure because nobody wants to wear a plastic bag inside the trousers, especially in climate like here in Vietnam. You are not going to convince people to do it. So I say this only as an example, you know, to show how important it is. And in my opinion, the science is only a very small percentage of the whole process, or the engineering is a very small percentage of the whole process. And I think in today's research, we need to look into this kind of thing, you know, the user experience. And engineers and doctors, medical doctors, we are not trained to do this kind of research. We need social scientists to help us, you know, the behavioral scientists, for example, to help us in studying the motivations of the users, for example. Now, this is a classic model which has been used in scientific training, which I do not need to explain to you at all. It's a triple helix model. It's a combination of the academic efforts, people from the industry, and from the government. So all three parties will benefit, you know, from this process. However, in our project, we extend the triple model into a quadruple model. We add one more dimension into the helix. So apart from academia, from the industry and the government, we add one more, which is the society. Now, this is, again, very important in the UK in terms of research assessment. every research projects, we need to think about social economic impact, how we can make a change in the life of people in the society. Now, we cannot ignore that. We are not living in isolation anymore. Universities are not a separate entity. What we need to do is to generate impact, to change the way that we operate. So the social economic impact could be very wide-ranging. It could be research leading to a change in the policy of the government, research leading to a change in the clinical guidelines, research leading to the change in the experience of the patients, or a change in our quality of life. So we decided to add this fourth element, into our research, which is looking into the impact on the society. And we all talk about, an economy-driven society, and this is what it is all about. So there is actually another alternative view. There is an alternative view of the quadruple model, but this time from the educational point of view. The four elements could be talent development, research, education, and knowledge exchange. So there is another way to look at this quadruple model. Now, however, this actually leads to our next slide. Are we doing the right thing for the students? So this is a rather busy slide. I hope you can see from your screen or from your computer what this is all about. So we have graduate training here, and we do postdocs, and finally, we can end up into any of these workforces. You could work in the university, you could work in government, you could do government research, you could do industrial research, or you might be unemployed, unfortunately. So there is a lot of outcomes, okay? Now, I am not sure about the situation in Vietnam. In UK, we have got far too many PhDs. So a lot of the PhDs actually will struggle to find a postdoc research program. I was very lucky. I did my PhD many years ago, and it's less competitive. But now there are far too many PhDs. So some people are lucky enough to get into the postdoc programs. Now, however, after the postdoc program, only about half of these postdocs will get permanent position in the university. Actually, not permanent position, academic positions in the university. And in fact, only 23% of them will become tenured and become academic staff like lecturers or whatever. So what happened to the 67% of the PhDs? They're not going to work in the university. They're doing all these other jobs in the industry, in the government, or whatsoever. Now, when you think about a traditional PhD training model, it is really focused on research only, okay? So are we doing the right thing for the students? When 23% of them, only 23 of them are going to be lecturers in the future. And in fact, although you're even working in the university, among these 23% of people, like Professor Thun, they work a lot with the industry. A lot of the projects are now linked to the industry, right? So I think we are actually doing a disservice to the students for what we're doing in terms of our traditional PhD model. So this is the, as I explained a bit earlier, this is the technology transfer process. You start with research right at the top, and then you commercialize, you do strategy and marketing and so on. However, as I said, our PhD training is only focused on research. What about all these other elements? If you talk to a typical PhD student, ask them about market research, they will have no idea whatsoever. So are we doing the right thing for the students? I don't mean they need to do market research, but at least they need to have an understanding of the market. What is going on? What are the requirements of the commercial world? What are the requirements of the clinicians? So, as I explained, the educational model is what a traditional research program is all about. We spend most of the time in writing grants applications, trying to get some money from somewhere, although we struggle too in finding the money. And then we do the research, but then all these things are not included in the PhD training. So I think there is a need to think about, a change in our educational model, in terms of PhD training. I think industrial engagement is really important because that is, relating to our real world. There can be many levels of industrial engagement. It could be at the lowest level as a Master of Research project, which is a one-year project in the UK, but it could be a research center of excellence, which is totally funded by the industry. This is not uncommon in the UK. There are large research centers totally funded by the industry. So there are many levels of industrial engagement. I'm not going to go into details of this, but I just want to emphasize how important it is to get the industry involved. Now, in the lowest level, the industry people only act as a supervisor. You know, there's a very low level of engagement. But when you come to this sort of partnership, that is a full partnership. You know, the industry actually has a say in how you run the research center. It is a full partnership. Whereas at the lower level, it's still very much university-driven PhD training, but with some involvements of the industry. So this is what we use in the UK, which is very common, a collaborative doctoral training model. As I said, it could be very simple, like an MRes in one-year program, but for a 3-year PhD, which is the normal sort of a program in any university, it is important to include transferable skill training, like teamwork, leadership, all that sort of stuff, which is very important, and entrepreneurship, understanding, how to become an entrepreneur. There will be group outreach activity to interact with the people, and also traditionally, the research ideas are generated by academic staff. But what we are proposing here is right in the beginning, there will be expert panels coming from the industry informing how the research should be carried out. And then at the end, in year 3, the PhD exam will also be examined by the expert panels. It wouldn't be examined by professors only. We need to consider how well we have done in terms of knowledge transfer. But don't forget, the impact studies is really critical. We want to look at how that has influenced the society, the social economic impact. Now, in the UK, we are still learning about how to generate social economic impact. In the 5 years ago, when we started to talk about social economic impact, it's something like you think about it afterwards. But actually, in order to be successful in generating social economic impact, you need to find pathways to get economic impact, social economic impact right from the beginning. You can't do it afterwards, it's too late, Now, also people think, if I broadcast the research in BBC, for example, that will generate social economic impact. That's wrong. That is only dissemination of information to the general public. You do not generate impact. You only generate impact when you have made a change in the society, okay? When you're broadcasting, talking about BBC, everyone is happy, University is happy because they got the marketing and the exposure to the world, but actually you are not making, an impact yet. Although I'm not saying this is not important, this is still important, but it is what we call the pathway to impact. It is not the impact itself, okay? So I think, this is something that we need to learn about. And obviously, co-supervision with the industry and whatnot. So that will make, the PhD training program a lot more rich, a lot more realistic, and fitting our purpose, not only thinking about the research itself, but also the bigger picture, in knowledge transfer. We did this project some years ago. Again, thank you to the British Council for funding this project. The name of this project is Education Fit for the Future. So this is what it is all about, to debate whether this our model is still appropriate. We have partners from everybody. I was still quite young at that time. I don't know why I got so much gray hair in the last few years. Must be because of the lockdowns and whatnot. Anyway. Or not enough beer, I suppose. So we did this project. I've been working very closely with Professor Thuyn, in implementing this project survey. We survey about 47 people. They are people from different parts of the, or different sectors, 16 of them come from SME, small, medium enterprise. 13 of them are PhD students studying, and 18 of them people working in the government. And we want to know what they think about, PhD training. Now, there is actually general agreement among everybody, okay? The collaborative doctoral training model provides a lot of benefits, okay? It provides access to additional resource funds by the industry and the government. It will increase the social economic impact that I mentioned. It will strengthen our research capacity. And more importantly, everybody agrees, international collaboration is important. And I think, in driving an economic-based economy, international collaboration is crucial. I don't know if you have read the international strategy of the UK. Vietnam is actually one of the priority countries in the strategy, together with India and some other countries. So everybody, there is consistent agreement that international collaboration is important. So that's why I think I'm here today. And hopefully after this seminar, we can discuss many other ways of working together. We also talk about, in this survey, we also identify some perceived barriers, to this kind of training. As I said, there may not be enough funding or resources to support it. There may also be still a mismatch between the industry and the university, for example. Obviously, there is no time waiting in the industry. They need to get the product into the market straight away, whereas we still think about pondering, what to do in the lab, in the university. So there might be some sort of mismatch in our interests or expectations. There's some concerns about secrecy, that shouldn't be. I think that would require open discussions between the parties involved right from the beginning. They may delay the scientific publication, because I think sometimes when we sign the agreement with the industry, it might be barred from publication for a few years. That is very common, but I don't think that should be something that stops us from doing the research and the knowledge transfer, and so on and so forth. And a lot of students actually still think they want to work in academia, which is actually quite interesting. When the reality is, a lot of them won't be working in academia. So I think students also need to kind of wake up. Being a lecturer is not the only job that you should do after a PhD. There are many, many things you can do after a PhD. A friend of mine who got a PhD in chemistry from Cambridge is one of the most successful CEOs in London. It doesn't do scientific research anymore. And one of my PhD students become an actuary scientist. Forget about biomedical engineering forever, but the mathematical skills they've learned in biomedical engineering has helped her a long way, to become an actuary scientist. So we all change as we go on, and then we need to be more laterally thinking, in terms of what we can do. However, although I said there are a lot of consistency among the groups of people that we survey, but there are some small but statistically significantly differences among the three groups of participants. I mentioned two here, which is actually quite interesting. One of the findings is that the students still tend to agree that industry has got enough resources to support the work, but not those people coming from the government sector. The people from the government, they want more money from the industry, obviously. But the second thing is also quite interesting. There are also differences among the three groups where the industry should lead the collaboration. Now, I think I am 100% convinced that even though they don't lead the application, they must play a leading role in the project in terms of industrial involvement or engagement. However, people from the government did not seem that should be the case. They think the university should be leading the work and not quite the industry. So there is some disagreement, among these, I think, which is quite interesting. It's related obviously to the mindset of people, who is controlling the agenda, the power, play among these different types of organizations. So I hope I have made the points quite clear in this presentation. A new educational model, what I call a collaborative doctoral training model, for you to consider in terms of the future generations of PhD. And this is important because PhDs are actually, the brightest people that we've got in the country. These are elite scientists who is going to take the country forward in terms of what they would do. So we must consider this, quite seriously. I've been also very fortunate to work with Professor TRONG and a number of other people, Professor C, which I believe is now on the in the internet, on this particular project, which is a prime example of collaborative doctoral training, which is a robust assessment of obstructive sleep apnea problem. As I said, the socio-economic side is important, so that is part of our, study. I have to apologize to Professor TRONG. This is a slide taken from your presentation, so I have claimed no originality or credit for this slide. I'm sure you know about this condition, sleep apnea. I think a lot of us suffer from this condition, although we do not want to tell people that, we do suffer from this condition. It is a repeated episodes of upper airway collapse, and obstruction during sleep, associated with snoring very often, but not always. The problem with this sort of condition is you do not see the consequence immediately. It's a chronic issue. I don't think I need to tell the doctors around the table here. They all know about this. It's widely known to be associated with high blood pressure, heart problems, stroke, dozing off, during meetings, for example. I think some of these people, when they can't even survive the first 2 minutes of a television program, or when they go to the cinema, they will doze off after the first 2 minutes, and snoring like crazy. And it's very common. Most of them are not diagnosed. Now, they actually, on the society aspect, that creates a lot of problem in the UK, which I would like to tell you, because in the UK, if you suffer from sleep apnea, and if you're not treated properly, your driving license will be removed, because it's actually quite dangerous to drive when you are suffering from this condition. So a lot of people, therefore, do not report this, to the doctor. They don't want to tell people they have got sleep apnea because they don't want to get into trouble. You see what I mean? It's a bit like the COVID condition. I think in some countries, I don't want to mention which countries, in some countries, if you've got COVID, you will be sent to isolation camps. You can't stay at home, right? I do not want to tell you that I've got COVID. I don't want to be sent to the isolation camps. I want to stay at home, So there's a lot of issues like this. And I think that requires, again, the cooperation between the government and the driving license people, to work out something that is, acceptable by the patients and avoid this sort of issues. International collaboration here, we have been working, these are the partners that we are working in this project, which, as you can see, involving different universities, involving the industry, and so on. And we have people, as I said, academic partners from the industry. We're very lucky, very fortunate and privileged to have people coming from the medical world. Professor C, for example, who is the president of the Sleep Medicine Society in Vietnam, working with us, who knows exactly what this issue is about. We have epidemiologists here, which is, which can help us too in doing our clinical trials. As I said, it's all about socio-economic impacts here, changing, the behavior of people in the society. And what we want to do is actually the home sleep system, which is inexpensive, that is affordable by Vietnamese people, which is easy to administer and accurate too. And I firmly believe, it's actually better to assess sleep conditions at home. At the moment, as patients are seen by the doctors in the hospitals, and they will monitor the sleep while they're in the hospital, that might not be the most natural environment, to assess sleep. I think we all sleep better or sleep more naturally at home than in the hospital. And we are doing this as a jointly supervised PhD program. I think our PhD student is in the audience here. Ty, hello. So we're going to implement this collaborative doctoral training model. Now, this is obviously the gold standard in terms of sleep assessment, which involve a number of components. assessing heart rate, EEG, eye movements, nasal, oral airflow, and so on and so forth. This is what is being practiced clinically at the moment. It is the gold standard, but we try to do a different approach to make it a bit easier. So what we intend to do is to use miniature sensors, what we call accelerometers, to look at the sleep position, the breathing rate, and the pattern. And we also are going to use acoustic sensor to measure the tracheal sound so that we understand what the airflow going on in the body. And this will be, programmed in the chips, and we will be able to do through the gateway, send the data to a sleep lab and do machine learning, for example, for recognizing this clinical condition. The accelerometer that we're going to use is triaxial, so it can detect signals at the 3 axis. Okay, so for example, when this person is lying supine, sleeping on the back, you will see that Z-axis having the strongest signal. If you're turning to the side, it will be the X-axis. Okay, obviously the sleep position is important because the symptoms of sleep apnea is different. I think we breathe better when we are sleeping on the side, generally speaking. So it is important to track the sleep position. These are some data which have already been collected by our PhD student, Tai, looking at the resultant of the accelerometer signals. So this is normal, regular breathing. And this is, when someone starting to have snoring, while they sleep. So we can detect it quite easily using the appropriate signal process. We also want to use acoustic sensor to look at the airflow. I mean, this is an idea that come out from our conversations with the medical doctor some time ago. So what we can do is to apply a bandpass filter here that will show us the respiratory signal. But if we look at to a low pass filter between the 20 to 200 hertz of the signal, then we can register the snoring energy. So it's not just studying the airflow. We can also look at how much energy has been used in terms of snoring. Now, another thing which is very important is pulse oximeter, looking at the blood oxygenation, during sleep apnea episodes. A lot of these patients have their oxygenation level drop to a varying level. When they snore. As I said, I don't need to tell the medical doctors about this. Nobody died from snoring. Nobody died from the sleep apnea itself, but because of the oxygenation drop, it affects a lot of the functions of the body, and you wake up like quite lousy the next morning. You don't sleep enough, basically. So the issue is more about the sleep quality, rather than the breathing itself, if you know what I mean. Although the breathing is the primary problem, causing a loss of the quality of sleep. And I think at some stage, I would encourage our partners to do clinical trials. This is really important to make sure whatever we are doing in our technology is useful or accurate enough, in terms of assessing the condition. So, as I said, the conventional approach is to use PSG. That's our gold standard, and we want to do a home test. This is a sort of matrix that I want to create. In medicine or in clinical trial or epidemiological study, we need to look at not only the sensitivity of the measurement, but also the specificity of the measurement. Okay, so in terms of sensitivity, is the number of true positive divided by the number of people who actually got the condition. That is how we define sensitivity. And in terms of specificity, it is the number of true negative tests divided the number of true people with the clinical condition. Okay, so I would strongly encourage my team members to consider doing a clinical trial at some point in time. And obviously, this is challenging. This is not going to be easy, but I think we ought to do it. For any medical devices or any medicine to be practiced, in we need clinical trials, a proper clinical trial. This is the gold standard of how we work, in terms of evidence-based practice. But we will need to look at sensitivity and as well as specificity, in our home assessment device. So finally, this is my last slide. I'm sure you will be glad to hear about this. I hope you will, and you have enjoyed my talk. We have proposed a new model of working, which is designed for bringing our PhD graduates into the real world, using a quadruple model based on collaborative doctoral training. And there may be other things we can do even at the undergraduate levels. Obviously, industrial placement is one of them. And industrial placement is no longer restricted to your local country only. I'm sure you've heard about the TRONG scheme in the UK, which is replacing the Erasmus scheme post-Brexit. And if the Vietnamese universities are interested, I'm happy to talk about this with with the interested parties, which is to consider having industrial placements in Vietnam for our British students. The UK government, the TRONG scheme, will be able to fund this. To fund the students to come to Vietnam. And I think this is really important. You don't just learn about your own country. This is a global world. Every country suffers the same problems. Sleep apnea is not a problem for Vietnam or UK only. Everyone in the world suffers from sleep apnea. And there are many other things like aging or some all sorts of clinical conditions. So there is some other things that we can do, using the current funding capabilities and resources to help to improve the learning experience of the students. So I think that's all. I didn't doze off, and clearly I must have recovered from my sleep apnea condition, whatever I'm doing. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Professor Raymond Lee. It is very impressive to me to hear the 4 elements in the model, the training model. And I think the next session will be a roundtable discussion, and the audience also have opportunities to ask Professor Lee more about the presentation, about the model, the collaboration between the industry, government, university, and the 4th element is social economic, the society. So we did time for setup, and I would like to invite.
I may add the former CEO of KHOA who did the people project in last 10 years, and then he now focus to IoT in and this project he confirmed to support us manpower, software license, industrial design, and what's Helix to be the first Helix, and I think that in today we have I'm idle.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. So thank you, Associate Professor Ma Anh Tuấn. So let me have a brief introduction of our panelists today, and I would like to invite you to the stage and have a discussion and interaction with the audience, online, offline. So the first member is a the panel is Professor Raymond Lee. You have heard a wonderful presentation. And the second panelist is Dr. Phan Hữu Phúc, Director of Training and Research, Institute of Tri Health, Vice Director of Medical Intensive Care Unit, Vietnam National Children's Hospital. And Dr. Phúc completed his medical bachelor at Thái Nguyên Medical University in 1996 and spent 10 years as a resident of physics and pediatrics and master in medical at Hanoi Medical Training. And in 2012, he completed his PhD in medicine at the University of Texas, USA. And the third panelist is Associate Professor Lê Kim Anh from Hanoi University of Public Health. And Dr. Kim Anh is a medical doctor, and she completed her medical doctor degree at the University of Medicine and Pharmacy at Ho Chi Minh City in 2001. She also got the MPH at the University of Queensland, Australia in 2006, and PhD in epidemiology at the University of Basel, Switzerland in 2012. So the female member in the panel. and we also have a panelist online, Professor Dương Sĩ Quý, President of Vietnam Society of Sleep Medicine, Penn State University of Medicine, Director of Lâm Đồng Medical College and Biomedical Research Center, Đà Lạt, Vietnam. So welcome, Professor Dương Sĩ Quý. And Professor Dương Quý Sĩ is an international expert in respiratory disease. He spent decades in the Europe, US and Vietnamese hospitals to cure patient and respiratory disease. He's been holding important roles in international journals as well as sleep medicine societies. He's now the president of Vietnam Society of Sleep Medicine. In 2012, he was elected as a member of Vietnam National Council for Education and Human Resource Development by the Government Office. And another member from the panelists is a person from Technology Partnership, Associate Professor Mai Anh Tuấn, Senior Lecturer, Vietnam National University, University of Engineering and Technology. And Associate Professor Tuấn has worked for Hanoi University of Science and Technology for almost 18 years till 2017, and he spent almost 5 years as a director of the microfabrication laboratory and pilot plant at Hòa Lạc High Tech Park, and vice director of Nansen Tech Technology and Business Incubator. And he will be the moderator for the discussion today. So please join me to welcome all the panelists to the stage. So please. Professor Tuấn, you start the discussion. And also from the audience, if you have any questions, you can post it online, and the secretary will give it to the panelists so that they can respond and interact to your questions as well. So please welcome.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you very much, VSL, for organizing this event. And thank you, Raymond again, for accepting us an invitation to Vietnam. I think that you are my first guest after 3 years. After 3 years, okay. And thank you very much for interactive presentation to talk about not our work, but also a general issue in Vietnam in terms of PhD training. Yeah. So good afternoon, Professor Dương Quý Sĩ, Professor Lê Kim Ánh, and Dr. Phan Hữu Phúc. So our medical expert today. So the pandemic caused by SARS-CoV-2 is a temporary pushback, and we are gradually establishing a new normal, almost new normal. And first of all, I'd like to thank all of you who have been at the forefront at the fight against the COVID-19. Yeah. And besides the medical expertise in this battle, in my opinion, how do you evaluate the contribution of technology solution? Because I think that's and we all recognize that in the battle of the COVID-19, that not only the medical doctor, but I think that involve the society on the field in this battle. So how do you evaluate the contribution technological solution? And do you have any how to say good memory about how to say the technical support during your task in the South? I like to add some more information that Professor Dương Quý Sĩ, Dr. Phan Hữu Phúc, and also Professor Lê Kim Ánh is they are all three went to the South in Bình Dương, in Long An, and Cần Thơ, Vĩnh Long to be again the COVID within months. Yeah. So please again give them an approach. Yeah. So I think that first of all, Professor Dương Quý Sĩ, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Thank you.
Okay. I understand that yeah, you are of course a professor at a very high rank international ranking, but you volunteer to go to Saigon, to Bình Dương, yeah, to Bình Dương to work with your college. So can you share your memory about the technological support during your task over there?
Yes, and thank you for your very nice questions, Professor Mai Antuan. And first of all, I would like to thank organizing committee, especially Professor Mai Antuan and Professor Raymond Lee. We worked together recently, and on the attenders. And so when talking about the new COVID-19, I have a very, very big memories because I spent nearly 6 months at the Bình Dương province during the outbreak of COVID-19. And so I living with COVID-19 patients, especially the last 3 months, I stay in ICU and to take care of the severe patients. And so I think I always stated before that in my medical careers, the 6 months living in Bình Dương to take care of the COVID patients is I can say the big challenge and the how to say the very, very deeply the contribution to healthcare system, because you know during the pandemic that we have no technologies to apply for the patients, and so I did on the manners for stopping COVID-19 pandemic. First of all, I built up the PCR innovative PCR center, and so the model from HOA is the outbreak before areas of COVID-19 before Bình Dương and Ho Chi Minh City. And so it's also the very, very sophisticated center, because we can code in the patients by online, and we have can take the sample, blood sample, and after that we can do it. But unfortunately, it's not very used by the government, and so it for the PCR center, I build up at the responsibility of the biocenter security. And after that, after treatment, working in ICU, we don't have any advanced technology to take care of severe COVID-19, because we use all the machine, on the device to support the respiratory problems. And so sincerely, we can say during COVID pandemic, we don't have adequate technology for caring the patients, because even though we don't know, we could not predict the outbreak. That's why I think the positive points for the pandemic last year, we have the very well policies to apply with 5 key, and after that with the vaccination. I think it's the good one. And so after that, we have telemedicines, we have some software, some model to predict the contaminations area or subjects. And so I think during COVID-19 pandemic, we don't have much, even though any advanced technologies, applications for stopping the disease, we use only the traditional manners, and fortunately, with our dynamic, with the good policy, we can stop it. And the last example is that why in USA we have more than 10% people contracting COVID-19, and with nearly 1 million people die due to COVID-19. That's why no technology can apply to the last pandemic, but maybe in the future we can prevent it with the progress or the sophisticated model and technologies. We all hope that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Dương. I think that your experience is also very valuable for us in terms of engineering and technology experts. And I think that we can come back to ask your advice and recommendation later in the panel. And Dr. Phan,
yes, thank you.
If I'm not wrong, that you spend at least
100 days.
more than 3 months in Long An, in Vĩnh Long province ICU. So at the beginning, who support you in terms of technological and engineering thing?
So we very happy to be here today talking about the COVID. I think it's just like it happened yesterday, but in nearly 1 year. This time last year, we still quite a normal activity in Hanoi, but it was bad in Ho Chi Minh City and in the south. And then I went there by the end of July, and I stayed there for more than 3 months in Vĩnh Long province. It's also one of the hotspots for COVID-19 outbreak in the south of Vietnam. And I have to operate one adult ICU with so many severe cases. Like Professor C just discussed about the situation in Bình Dương. In Vĩnh Long, it's not as bad as in Ho Chi Minh City and Bình Dương, but it is kind of like small province, and it's a very limited capacity for both a medical professional as well as medical equipment, medication, and etc., including like from the very simple one, like you can say that the face mask for the healthcare professional, or advanced technology to supporting the patient. So when we first came, and then we just had the order from the Ministry of Health, we need to mobilize. At that time, we are among about more than 20,000 healthcare professionals from the north have to mobilize to the south to support our college and our the people there. We didn't know how was there at the beginning, and then we just have our enthusiasm to go there. And when we first came, and then we see it was masses, so many severe patients, and lack of medical equipment, and our colleagues there, they did try their best to kill the patient in the very limited capacity. And we have to mobilize all of the medical equipment from the north back to the south. And at that time, we can say that because I am a doctor working in the ICU, and we all know that, and you all know that COVID-19 is when the patient getting severe is a very, very devastating condition and requires a lot of advanced technology in medicine, in medical equipment and medication to save their life. And Professor Tuấn just said we are a frontline medical professional, and Professor C also mentioned. But you can say that if we just go there without medical equipment, without the medication, and also without all of the necessary from the simple one. So we, like I showed you, go to the battle without weapon. So that's we can see how important of the technology in medicine. And for the severe patient, we need to, from the very simple one to advanced, you can hear about the ventilator, and ventilator is just a symbol we can discuss later on in the other parts. But we need a very advanced technique like some equipment to work, replace the renal, the kidney when they're failure. And also we need some, you might heard about the ECMO, that is kind of like artificial heart and lung to support for the severe patient. But it's a very advanced technology in medicine. We have to use it to support and to save the life of the patient with COVID-19. But actually, I said it's from very advanced technique, but I do remember one of just a simple, I can say it's a simple if compared to the ECMO or something like that. But for me, I remember one of the technology, our college in, I dare not to say the college, engineering, our friend to make during the pandemic. The first one I remember just the equipment is like hand sanitizer dispense, automatic one. Actually, I had a lot of this equipment from my friend. He was one of the engineering working at a polytechnic university. He got COVID-19 when he got a travel to UK for the scientific conference. So when he get back, and then he acquired in earlier 2020. So he had quarantine and he got a severe, not much severe, but he need to hospitalize. So during staying quarantine for COVID-19, and he's a friend to develop such a machine. And then with another friend, he has a business. So they work together to produce a lot of this dispense machine to for the hospital, and including in the north and the south. So these are one of kind of like one of present we received during the COVID-19, the support from friends, and also the other simple one like you also have to use some kind of like technology, you can say, some vest, something instrument to help for the medical professional to reduce the heat during the hot summer time last year. So I think it's used a kind of like one that's our product, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this one we also have. So I think that is a technology can use from the simple one, or maybe we can the basics one to support the medical professional up to the very advanced technology to save the patient. And it's all this one can have for our medical professional so working easier to achieve the result to take care of the patient. So I think this is that's a very simple to say. So without technology, it's just only the medical professional. I think they can do anything. So yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. You can see that according to the story given by Professor Dương Quý Sĩ and Dr. Phan Hữu Phúc, we can see a very organic collaboration between the medical doctor and technologists. I think not only during the COVID-19, but as Professor Dương said that in the US, maybe 10% of the medical staff are technologists and engineer. Yeah. So Raymond, do you think that 2% unemployed in the US relate to this number? Oh, in training, on training. Okay, so I had a question to Professor Lê Kim Anh. I know that you are working as a static experts in the myology field. So in my thinking, that your work relates strongly to mathematics, modeling, simulation, and I think that the impact is huge. For example, you can predict the spreading of the virus, the area that or the number of people will be, or when is a pandemic can reach the peak, for example. So how do you find in working with another engineering group?
Okay. First of all, I would like to say thank you for inviting me to be here to share my thinking about the contributions of the technology in health science. For your questions, I could like the first thing I could like to share some of my thoughts related to Professor Raymond Lee presentation about the thinking about the how can I say the fit between the industry and university or academy institute and the civil community to make the valley, you call the valleys from the technology to the reality world, right? In your presentations, I really like that the idea or the approach to fill that valley. In actually my background is medical doctor, but I work now in public health, and in public health we have the same approach we call multi-dimensional approach. For example, when we have any interventions in public health, because our target group is the community or the population, so we need to hear from other fields in the community, not only from health science, but also from industry, from government, from policymaker, and also from the people in the community, right? That's why I really like your presentation. And the second thing, when we talk about the my experts, I can say that when we work in the epidemiology or biostatistics in health science, I have many opportunity to work with technicians, the people working in the technology, and I think that the most important is we need to share the idea. For example, I give you a requirement, and you will use your technology to help me to answer that question or that requirement. In the COVID-19 pandemic, when I work with in the companion of the doctor to help patient get COVID, stay at home, and I have some experience to work with about 4 or 5 internet platforms to call the patient at home and give some advice to them or something like this. And I highly appreciate the talent of the people working in technology, because they can get my idea very well. But sometimes I should explain more detail about my requirement or my opinion. And the people working in some technology company can understand very well. For example, I work with FPT, BKAV, some startup in technology, and they make the platform very well. And you can see at the beginning, we just have 7 days to develop one platform. And in that platform, we divide some technology for manager, for doctor, and for volunteer. And I highly appreciate the contributions of the technicians in that case. And the last thing I would like to share that in my public health view, we don't see this is the valleys between the technology and the reality world. We call it the gap, and how to fill that gap. For the PhD training, for example, in my university, we use the implementation science approach. That means when you have techniques, and in the circle, in the Raymond's presentation, we talk about the concept testing, because if we want to apply a technique in the community, we need to know the concept, about the culture, about their behavior, everything. And if you have that knowledge about the community, you can make better the marketing process, the concept testing process, and everything. So I just share my experience about that. And in my university, when we require all the PhD candidates should have an intervention or something like this. And now intervention is not something like a new innovation or new technology or new intervention for the community, but we should bring some innovation or some technique and to apply it in the real community. And that's why we need implementation science approach. And maybe in the future, when you have some technique like some mobile app to help the people to quit smoking or something like this, just ask me about the implementation science, and I will help you to approach my community, right? Thank you. Okay.
Oh yeah.
But the process
So
is
in here with the participant, with Professor and with his permission, with the permission of the SSN, I myself and my team think that we have a responsibility to contribute to, how to say, to improve the scientific study, and also how to say, to improve the quality of the people who have sleep apnea symptom. That we can develop a website to improve their knowledge about that, and maybe help them to predict the risk level of the OSA. And with the help from VSSM, we can address precisely the right doctor. You can see that now there are so many fake doctors. I'm sorry to say that, but over YouTube or the media, everything can be a doctor, and everyone can be a doctor, and everyone can treat a patient. And we never know that he or she is a real doctor or that. So of course, I will come back to ask you because ask Dr. Phan about that. And Raymond, you can see that the story we share right now matching very well with the model you share. And we of course we try to get in touch to make it better. Okay, so Professor Zeng, I think that during the pandemic, you stay like Dr. Phan, you stay at the ICU treating the patient. But at the meantime, you publish a lot of paper related to your work. I'm curious that this study relate to, how to say, the PhD program with your PhD student or not?
Yes, thank you, Professor Manton, for your very important questions. Because for me, as a physicians, our role not only for take care of the patients, but we should do the scientific activities. As you know, when I came to Bình province, I started to study the rare case. My first case report is about the anosmia with the other symptom. You know, in July, you know, anosmia defined as the loss of smell, and so it's a very, very interesting case because the patient is the medical student, and he declared the loss of smell with those symptoms. And at that time, people have only one dose of vaccinations. And so although the results of RT-PCR was negative, but I'm sure because I know that anosmia is the very, very specific symptom of COVID-19, and I redo the PCR, and after the second one is positive, and I check the first one. We have the technical problem because the aspiration tube is not done the good position, and after that we reject the first sample is also positive, and so it's the first example to show you that our role is not only at the doctor physician, but we should do the scientific research. In total, during the Bình COVID pandemic and during 6 months, I have more than nearly 12 study, case report, and about 6 or 7 had been submitted. And so now I'm waiting for the Bình People Committee to approve my scientific research about the processing of FNC, high flow nasal cannula treatment. And the second project is about a TPE, therapeutic plasma exchange. And I, on behalf of the highest level of medical advisor, I decided to do the TPA firstly in Vietnam, for patients with the severe COVID-19. In other cities, such as in Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City, we have ECMO, but in Bình Dương, I did the TPE. In Vietnamese, Tảo hiNG. And so with this technique, we save a lot of severe patients with COVID-19. And I published it already. And now I'm waiting to do the 2 provincial research with the budget about $30,000 from Bình Dương province. And in this study, I involved some master and PhD. And for 10 papers written previously, I always asked my PhD students. Currently, I have about 7 PhD students to take care of them and involve in all my research, and so to help them to approach another, because it's a PhD student have another different research topic, but with COVID-19, it's a new field, and based on the specific field, for example, for PhD student with currently doing the sleep research with me, I gave them the study on the sleep disorder in severe COVID-19 in the ICU, sleep disorders in the healthcare worker in front line, other topic. And for PhD student candidate working on respiratory diseases, I give the study on, for example, the predictive factor of mortality of sleep, of severe COVID-19. And all of that to say that, because it's not easy to do the research, to collect the data, and to follow the flowchart of research plan, but I try to do it because it's the only one occasions to do that, and now it's over because now we see rarely the patient with severe COVID-19 in ICU. Even though I think for COVID-19 pandemic, Vietnam have a very, very big, well, and wonderful success to overcome the pandemic. But the lack of Vietnam physicians is that lack of the study. And we rarely find out the randomized controlled trials from Vietnam about COVID-19. And, even though when someone asks you about the mortality, the predictive factor of mortality of severe COVID-19 in Vietnam, we should wait only my single center study. You don't have the multi-center studies and something like that. And so I think that's why we should involve on the PhD candidate, master, even though physicians. And after after the COVID-19 pandemic over in Bình Dương, but I organized, build up on already the group of the research physicians, nurses, and other healthcare workers to start another study in COVID-19 patients. And so I think that is our role to develop healthcare health scientific research in our field. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It seems that the quadruple helix can apply to his case. Yeah. So we do have academy, we do have government, industry, and civil society. Okay. So I think that in the audience, there's someone to ask question. Dr. Nguyen.
Well, in fact, I have two questions. One for Professor Lee and the other for the invited guests. So come back to your seminar. So you talk about the quadruple helix model, and normally we have three actors: so government, academia, and industry. So they work together, collaborate for solving a big issues, and which is called civil society. It belongs to the civil society. And now I see that the act of the doctors here come to the front line in order to fight for the COVID, and Dr. Tuấn to find out a small, a very innovative techniques in order to reduce temperatures of the health professional in the front line. So do you think that it is an actual application or practice of your quadruple helix model in Vietnam? Do you think that it is a real case or not? And it is a question for Professor Lee, and question for you, for invited guests. So when you go to the front line, or when you find out an application for the people on the front line, you feel that it is your personal responsibility, obligate, engaged for the society, or is because of the many people in the society do the same way, and then you have to follow them? So this is my two questions for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that I'm not answering the second question, which is much more difficult. Certainly, I think it's a model not only applied to the UK, it's a model to be applied to all countries. You know, society is what we care about. You know, using the COVID as an example, technology, for example, has changed the way that we respond to COVID. So the government decision in lockdown is actually based on epidemiology modeling. You know, using non-pharmaceutical intervention, which is social distancing. You know, and that is the decision that the government has made based on science, based on technology. You know, however, it's causing a huge problem in the society. People are staying at home. They're depressed. They're not earning enough money. The economy is compromised. You know, so it's not without problem. The only thing now we can do, whatever we are doing now, and the economy is recovering, is a vaccine. You know, that allows us to resume our everyday life and whatnot. And that is a prime example, I think, of the social economic impact of the model. Vaccine is not a university job. You know, it's a collaboration between the pharmaceutical industry, and the university and the government, in funding the vaccine, fast tracking the whole process. So that is a prime example, and that is making a huge impact on the society, that we are able to resume to our normal life. So. And you can see a lot of international collaboration in that, because vaccine needs to be tested in different countries. It can't be tested just in the UK, for different races, for different ethnicity, and see the responses. And that can only be done with a multi-center international effort. So I think, this model of including the society is universal, and I think the pace of development is very fast. I'm sure Vietnam will adopt this kind of model, looking at social economic impact. If you look at the World Bank, reports about Vietnam, there isn't enough social economic impact of research. And I think Vietnam, from what I understand, the government is aspiring to be one of the economically driven society by 2030 or something like that. I can't remember that. I can't remember that now. And the industrial strategy in the UK is based on the same kind of ethos. So there's no doubt, society, the fourth component of the quadruple, is a center of what we are doing. And going back to your comment a bit earlier, implementation science, there is funding body, as I said, which is focused on implementation science. You cannot apply these fundings for research. You can apply these fundings for any other purposes except implementation. because that is really a very difficult part and there is a missing link. And there are also funding bodies in the UK which do not accept research proposals anymore. So traditionally, you apply for research grants, right, using a proposal. But actually, now you can only apply research grants with an idea, and then you will work with the industry to develop the idea together. So the grant is for developing the proposal. It's not actually assessing a proposal. And also, there are also grants which allow us to work collaboratively. So in the past, different universities compete for grants. So some are lucky winners and some are the sad losers, right? But what we realize is, to do proper clinical trial, you need a huge effort from a consortium of people. And therefore, the assumption is, these people we need to work together. They're not competing against each other. So you apply as a consortium in that case, and people with similar proposals will be put together, into the same funding mechanism so that they don't compete with each other anymore. So I think the government is also playing a critical role here, in trying to change the way that we operate, changing the way that we, advance science, but society is still the key aspects of what we're doing. The last comment that I want to make is, you're going to laugh at this, socio-economic impact, I can surely tell you, cannot be assessed by impact factors of journals or any of the ISI ratings or Q1, Q2 rating. Has no association with that whatsoever. In fact, in the UK, we do not assess publication according to these metrics anymore.
I just asked you. You said about the Q1, Q2, and some publications, and I mentioned that it's included in the research in public health or clinical science. Wow.
Yeah. I think these ISI index, is applicable to all disciplines. But as I said, we do not use these metrics anymore in assessing research, and also we do not assess number of publications anymore, because to encourage people, to publish rubbish. So there is a change in the dynamics, how we think about research. And citation index is useful only in some disciplines, like physics and whatnot, because those papers are cited by many, many people, right? But in most other disciplines, the number of citations is very limited. It's not big enough to distinguish the good ones and the bad ones. You see what I mean? So, but this is only the academic side of it, honestly, even the academic side, the metric is useless. But what can honestly say, the social economic impact, no chance you can assess it by any of these metrics.
So it is really interesting to talk about how you can evaluate different work by the scientists. And I remember that during the COVID time, and I was a COVID patient, and I read very useful guidelines from the government, on looking at the criteria and see and self-evaluate my situation and find it really useful, but I don't think that it will be cited in any publication. And from what you're sharing, I would like to ask a more general question about, is that your experience from the UK universities and the academia to promote innovation and the production or the creation of more useful products, or how to say, more the products that can be implemented immediately in the society?
Well, although I talk a lot about industrial collaborations and whatever, but don't forget, we also need blue sky research. We cannot ignore that, okay? But that needs to be done in a completely different way in terms of promoting blue sky research. The traditional grant mechanism will not allow that to happen, because when you write your grant proposals, you will be very safe. You want to get a grant, right? So you want to write in a way that the grant reviewers would like to see it, right? And you need to demonstrate that the project will be successful, right? if you say, you know, my project will fail, no one will fund your project. So, but in terms of blue sky research, you need to allow failure. You cannot predict the outcome of the research. Otherwise, it's not blue sky anymore. You see what I mean? UK is still not so good in that aspect, in my opinion. When I used to work in Sydney, Australia, they have actually a grant scheme, which is to promote blue sky research. You have to demonstrate that your project is going to fail. It's the other way around, because this is how you introduce new ideas, you know, into the research process. Now, then it is a balancing act between these two types of research. You know, obviously, we can't afford to do a lot of blue sky research, and blue sky research is only limited to certain disciplines. You know, like the basic science. You know, people working in physics or biology or chemistry. You know, for us working in the health professions or in engineering, these are applied sciences. We are not trained to do this kind of research. You know, so for us, I think the quadruple model and the collaborative doctoral training are much more appropriate, you know, for what we're doing, as compared to some of the basic science people, where they need to crack new ideas. You know, they are the Nobel Prize winners. You know, they are the people who change, you know, a complete paradigm, you know, in the way that we think. So I mean, laser is a very good example. You know, laser originally is invented by the physicists. Although we all use lasers now in all sorts of applications, you know, in surgery we use lasers and whatnot, but we do not invent laser, you know, but we are translating laser into surgical science. So I think for the quadruple model, that's a lot more applicable to us. But I don't want to say, you know, this is the only thing that we do. We still need some kind of blue sky research from somewhere to support the growth of science.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. And it reminded me about the time that I did my PhD in New South Wales. And we had a series for postgraduate students and doctoral students. And they say, so what series? So that means they talk about their research and say, so what? Okay. So what is the impact of the research on the society? And they talk about the role of the applied research and also blue sky research. And they talk about like blue sky research is a kind of like a luxury. Yeah, luxury. And I think in medicine education, it is a very special kind of training, because when you train and then the doctors can practice as well. And so the relationship between like a training and practice is very close. But in other field of training, and I would like to address my questions, like in my field in education, and sometimes people have a joke that the teachers or the student teachers, they are trained in one context and they work in different contexts, and the link, and the link is not very clear. And we also have a one line of research. It is a design-based research, and we have to work with what you say, consortium of experts in education, technology, education, language, linguistic, and then we think about the solution or the way that we can devise some implication or the online or e-learning platform. And I would like to address this question to Associate Professor Mai Tuấn. You are an expert in technology. So how can you identify the needs from the customers? It's like from doctors in here or the people in the field, so that you can put the needs into your training and create a closure, close or the tight link between training and industry.
Okay, thank you very much for your, I think that is a little difficult question. So please give me a couple of seconds to think about that. And I want to give the micro for Dr. Phan for the second question.
It's a very interesting question. And I think it's before we answer and Dr. Anh answers the question, I'd like to ask a question to Professor Lee about your model regarding to the fourth element of the civil society. For us, we are medical professional and practitioner. what you in the three one in the example you see in the study about the sleep apnea, you see the sleep apnea society is kind of government and public sector, but for the physician who are kind of like we are like end user, do you think we are social civil society or not industry or public sector or something like that? Because like we as a person who use the final product, yes, and the doctor, for instance, you make this a microphone, and then now I'm using that. So,
well, of course, you know, the users are not only the patients. The doctors are also users of these technologies. Yeah. So users in this case is very loosely defined. You know, both doctors and patients are end users of medical products. But obviously, it depends on the type of medical products. Okay, so for sleep apnea, for example, I think both the doctors and the patients are very important, you know, as being end users. But there are other projects that we do. For example, we are working with surgeons to improve endoscopic techniques and medical robots. No, so the end users in this case are clearly the nurses and the doctors. You know, they are the people who are operating, you know, inside the theater. So it depends on the application. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So I think, you know, doctors are generally speaking the users of the technology, but they could be academia, because in some universities, doctors are holding joint appointments, you know, between the university and the hospitals. So in our case, we have 8 positions, professors, you know, in the university who are paid not only by the university, half of the salary is paid by the hospital. So they play a dual role, you know. They are not only academia, but they are also people working in the hospital, which is the industry.
Yeah.
So we have migrating roles, you know. We may switch from one role to another, but I think that is probably you know, more of a philosophical, you know, debate. But the important thing here is, you know, we have to bring these people together to make it work, and then we may play different roles at different times.
Sure, I think that's for us, like kind of like for regarding to the question, we are frontline a healthcare worker, and we have to play a different role in this scenario. So that we can act. Sometimes it's like if you think you are a physician, or you are sometimes you academy, or sometimes you like just industry because you work for hospital. So you sometimes you work like the patient. So you put this on the shoe of the patient, and then you can see the different aspect to see that. So that could be a part of answer for your question, because it's very hard to say, because you have a different role as you are kind of like I can say that at this time I can the social civil society, and sometimes I can like industry, and sometimes I can academy, or maybe I work in the public sector as well. So
That's very intelligent.
so this is maybe Professor Anh has more experience to answer for specific questions.
I agree with you, and I can call you the multi-dimensional guys, right? Yes. And actually, I share with the Raymond idea about the publications or application. Sometimes I just wonder, we do the research for publication or research for application. And some people talk to me that maybe both. Research for publication is for my career, and research for application for myself or something like this. Yes. And I like the idea about the research for application rather than the research for application, publication. But we should do both, because I work in the university and I could not do anything without the publication. Yes.
Okay, so I think that the answer is very brilliant. So I think that meets the question that Dr. Nguyen. So before I answer my question, so the question from Dr. Nha, that I would like to ask in the audience, the representative of the industry, a real one. Mr. Lê Thanh Tung, can you tell me that recently you give more room for the university, for academia media to work with you in terms of development of medical equipment. So what are the criteria for you, for the academia to work with you in terms of R&D activity?
Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Lê Thanh Tung. I come from Daigou company, and I have experience in the IoT device about more than 15 years. And this time I cooperate with Mr. Thuấn and Professor Raymond in the project for the OSA device. When we work with Mr. Thuấn and the professor, we don't have any experience for the mechanical device, but we have experience to finish the smart device, electrical device for the industrial. So in us, like in the present of Professor Raymond, Professor says that we, the industrial company, will have more discuss and more connection with the doctor, with some research man, with the professor to more understand about the requirements of the product, and with our experience to develop and have a complete product for the industry. The main problem when we work with the work to finish the mechanical product is we don't have more understand and more information about the mechanical, and we need the professor and the doctor have us to how to explain. We can do the product, but the product in the market for the mechanical is different with the other device we already done before. Yeah.
So it the medical advice or something like it, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
End user and multi dimensional role.
Yes.
In this case. So thank you very much, Mr. Tung. That also thank you very much for supporting us, even in case that the project has not yet funded. So he supported in terms of software license, manpower, and his expertise. And so for your question, now you see that it is willing to work with us. Yeah. And you can see that with two medical experts here, you can see that you can see a more open environment. I think that the case before on the door to the medical and health technology is closed. There is no chance for the physics technologists to come in to work with. But I think that in my observation, I see that gradually it's open. And we have a more chance to work with the medical doctor to demonstrate our technology solution. And also industry also realize the important role of research. And you can see that the demand exists. So now come back to the quadruple Helix. In the presentation given by Professor Lee, you can see that if we can combine the 4 pillars, I prefer more 4 pillars. It's more understanding than quadruple helix. So our idea have more chance to be realized and implemented in the life in real application. And of course, working as a researcher within university, my experience is to always ready to work with, always ask, and always to be asked even the top question. Sometimes the question from industry and end user is very uninteresting. So we should accept the different idea, different thinking, working in a team, respect other people. And if we can, if we can combine the expertise from different field, then I think that it doesn't matter what the funding body is. So they will fund us. Yeah. Even now, this is one of our project is not funded, but for example, with the commitment of the industry, the support from VSSM, Professor Zeng Quy is here, and also medical expert. For example, last year, my innovation is very small, but it apply for at least 5,000 medical staff during the COVID. But I think that it couldn't be realized without their feedback, because we improve the model, the characteristic of the product almost every day within 1 month. So finally, I don't expect that the product will be reserved for the medical in the future, but who knows? That's now the product is applied for another customer. So also very thankful for the feedback. First of all, from the targets, and the most difficult end user, that is medical doctor. Because if I discussed with Professor Lee, also with Mr. Lê Thanh Tùng, that we can develop very quickly a hardware, electronic, firmware, software within a month, with a lot of manager and end user or volunteer, like you said, we can do that. But without the medical advice, professional advice, it's just a toy. It's just a toy. So that is my answer. So I think that in here, Professor C, you are now working a member of the National Council for Human Development. So I hope that, and I also think that the rest in the whole also think that if there is any chance for you during the meeting with the National Assembly, that you can contribute and maybe give your concern and propose such model during the meeting of the council. Okay.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I will present the 4 pillars in research applications, and then the council, national council meeting, and so it should be integrated in with treatment axis of the education, because the council is have the very important role to help the government to develop the education. So firstly, we can use the 4 pillars to improve education, especially from college to university, to develop the students' soft skill competency and innovative idea first one, because of with 4 pillars, we have already the meaning of them inside the education, and after that we can deal focus on the main pillar. You know, for example, the research, academic research for retraining to develop the human resource competencies, high quality of human resource. And after that, the third one, I think is very important to integrate the 4 pillars that developed by yourself, and it's that you know, to select the people, the human resource with the criteria to have the ability to solve the problem with smart way. And after that, the person as selected person must move in the current activity into the future, not only to improve or to solve the current problems, but for the future. And the last one, to integrate the 4 pillars inside the education and retraining of continuous training, is that to share in our cooperating with other researchers, academic people, or industrial person to move forward for the futures. And I think it's very how to say, very relevant and wonderful, the idea to integrate the last pillar into the research applications. And I would like to give the term Professor Tuấn said, that the social and social reaction media, I can give the very simple term, but it's very common and popular in Vietnam. It's that social feedback phản biện xã hội. It covers all the meaning of the economic, social, culture of the population, and also for the the reactions. And I think the social feedback is a good term. We can use it for research applications, and also for human resource development. And that's we can see very clear now. We have the social feedback on the quality of PhD training. The problem with history, the freely select the obligation to do. And so I think social feedback is very, very important for all the researcher and industrialized areas. Thank you, Professor.
Maybe I can make one final comment, if that's okay. I mean, we discussed about the model, the training model, right? But I think there is also another consideration that I haven't mentioned in my talk, which is the inputs to the model. Where do we find the brightest students to do the training? That is not easy as well. My observation is, I'm not sure about the situation in Vietnam, but in many countries, the training of biomedical engineering is generally hosted by the engineering faculty. And very often there isn't enough medical elements or clinical elements in the training. And also, we very often only admit engineers into the program. My proposal will be, actually, the course biomedical engineering should not be exclusive to the engineers. We need medical doctors, who are interested in engineering to do the same kind of training, because they will have the medical knowledge, to help them. And likewise, engineers, we need to spend a lot more time in the clinical training, And there's also the fundamental skills that you need, because people who train in biology and medicine, they are not always mathematically competent. Whereas, people who are engineers, they might be very good at maths, they might not understand the biology. So I'm also thinking about this, in terms of the inputs to the system, and perhaps Professor C may have some more comments on that too. And that's something that you may want to also consider in terms of the human resources, for these discipline. I use engineer and medicine as example, but actually, people coming from public health or people coming from social science could also contribute to this sort of training.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to see what you might have any further comments on it.
I don't think that we can hear you.
So I mentioned about this human resources training, Professor C. I just wonder if you may have any more comments on that.
Yes, and so for the, for social human resources training, it's very, very well developed in Vietnam. But the problem is that, for the training, we don't have the outcome or the focus on the clear criteria. And so we base it on the diploma. That is sometimes, we miss between the high quality human resources or high quality people with, with the unqualified people. And so that's why for the training activities, I think the main policies of Vietnam government in the future, we should reform it to have the, we focus on the outcomes, and for each field, for social scientists, for medical workers, for engineers, and so on. And so I think we should do the reform on it. And so my role in the National Council is about to give the ideas, and I hope that in my mandate from 2020 to 2026, we will have the new how to say, the new orientations and the chance for the current system. And so we all hope that. But finally, I can assure you that Vietnam have a very, very strong policy in continuous training after graduations. And so we hope that. And I think we should focus on that, because we need the professional, the real life workers and researchers. We don't need the student to the high competency student or a very smart student. The university need that for the input, but for output in our field, in medicine, in science and technology, we need the real life high quality workers, high qualified people to work with us to develop the technology, to apply the new device, and to in medicine or in social science and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dương Quý Sĩ, and thank you, the panelists and the moderator. I think that the conversation will continue forever, as the audience are really interested in this topic. And when I look at the title, like Education Fit for the Future, and I listened to your sharing and your presentation and information, and one word that stay with me is a word that open. So it is open for new ideas, open for collaboration, open for like you can talk about, if we just talk about secrets, or talk about like I'm the only one who will lead this. So it is really difficult for the partnership. So with me, it is a word open. And I think that VSL, Vietnam Scientific Link, it is an association under Vietnam National University, is also making an effort to open the conversation from education, the conversation between the scholars and researchers at university to the society. And this event is one of them. And I really thank Q for all the inputs and for the insight and the experience. To conclude the event today, I would like to invite our Deputy Chair, Associate Professor Nguyễn Trần Thuật, to give remarks and also the flowers as a thank you note to all the panelists. And I hope that you will have more conversation with us in the future. Yeah. So please, Associate.
Okay. So let me put myself here. So thank you very much, Professor Lee, and thank you very much, panelists, invited guests. Well, it is very difficult to make a summary of what we have been discussing today in a few words, but I would like to try to do so. So there are some key words that I keep for myself is the quadruple model, the fourth element, the social civil society, multi-dimensional. And the way, of course, the model is very universal and they have many aspects. One aspect is to train students, train PhD students. And I think of myself 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, when I was a PhD student, and I did work with external experts in order to evaluate my research. How much does it cost? And how much does it cost to train myself? And how much people will pay for my research? And I think that maybe it is a good way to do a PhD study. And I realize that it is a way that you want to say. And of course, there are also social economy impact, ways that we assess research and we assess products and also the thing on. And also very happy to see, and to meet people like you, medical professional who went to the front when we were at home. Okay, stay safely. And you have to fight for the pandemic. And also to meet Professor Tuấn, who is invent a very useful technique in order to keep, to provide a good condition for you to work in the front light. So this is what I get from today. And from the VSL side, we have collaboration with British Council, with project, and we really would like to invite you, like an email, to participate in our activity and actively in our activities. And I think this is a way to strengthen the collaboration within our network and yours, UK, Vietnam's higher education network. And of course, thank you very much for coming today, all of you. And we have flower and present for you. And after that, we will take a photo together. All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you and goodbye. Goodbye, Professor Tuấn. Goodbye, Raymond. And thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you very mumuch, Professor Zhuang. See you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye. See you next time.
Okay, see you next time.
Bye, Raymond. See you later.